What's up, fellas? It's your main man back on the scene with another video. So as we see, this mass migration problem is not only in the US, it's also in Europe, and they're not happy. I know Sweden and Norway is trying to boot them back out because it's not going to work. It's too many people from an alien culture. They're not going to integrate into society. They're going to keep whatever they came with, whatever culture they have, where they came from, they're just going to bring it here. That's what's going to happen. It happened in Sweden. It's happening in the UK. It's happening in France, especially if you're not going to give them opportunities for good jobs. That's where the other problem comes in. Now, the people that were born there have to compete with somebody from somewhere else. And they're not going to like that, because I wouldn't like it. Because it's not right. If these companies want cheap labor, they should pay for them to come here. They shouldn't be using our tax dollars to bring them here. If you want to bring them here, fine, but you pay for it. It's rock and roll. Oh, I read this post, and I mentioned this before, on a message board. It's maybe like 15 years ago. This guy was saying that he believed globalists want to bring the standard of living in the US down to the level of a third world country. And I believe that's true. It had the ring of truth to it. And you can see it going on now. Look at all the homelessness. San Francisco is a dump. New York is a dump. Chicago's becoming a dump. LA, homeless encampments. What kind of crap is that? All that money is supposed to be the richest state in the country, but you can't get those people off the street. There's something wrong. And they're allowing people to steal stuff. If it's under $1,000, we're not going to do anything. That's just a misdemeanor. What? How about you don't steal the stuff? You know, they say you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. That's exactly what's going on. They're going to take advantage of it. Look at the stores that are leaving these areas because they can't stay open because they've got a bunch of people rampaging through the stores, stealing stuff. Who makes these laws, man? Let's go. And this is at 1.25 speed.
Now I'm going to do something which most journalists and presenters wouldn't dare do. That is going down the route of a particularly taboo story that is close to my heart, shall we say. And I'll tell you why. It's all about crimes and migrants committing crimes. And I'll tell you why this is particularly close to my heart. Because to coin a favourite phrase of the left wing, it has been my lived experience over the past 3 years or so that a lot of crimes happening against women especially seem to be committed by people who aren't from this country. I've been followed home with a man in one of those Afghan colpole hats, chuntering.
Yeah, they were saying that in Sweden for years, and the government kept denying it. It's not true. It was true. Or it is true.
Away in some language, all the way to my front door. I had to hide in my neighbour's house and pretend I didn't live in my house because he was lurking around outside trying to do indecent things to himself. That's right. I've also had my phone robbed off.
Well, I'm sure men that were born in the country do that stuff too. It just didn't happen to her. I remember back in the day, they used to have a phenomenon, flashers, like a guy with a trench coat on or something. He'd flash the ladies or something, weirdo stuff. But I get it. If the rate has increased,
me by a Roma woman with a scarf on. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Who are these people? Why are we importing all this stuff? I cannot walk down the streets where I live anymore without weird men leering at me, making comments. Look, I'm not one of these Me Too movement women. When it was builders wolf whistling from vans, I don't care. Sometimes it brightens up your day. Because what they don't do is they don't get into your personal space. They don't.
Yeah, it depends on how you do it. Hey, back in the day, you could whistle at some ladies, and a lot of them liked it. Every now and then you get one who didn't like it. But in general, they liked it. I guess if they liked the way you look, then it was cool. But if they didn't like the way you look, then... But it wasn't a big deal, because you're not saying lewd things to them.
don't trail you. They don't physically approach you. They don't follow you to your front door. It's a very different, sort of more harmless thing, a wolf whistle, than some of the stuff I'm being subjected to now.
Yeah,
and some of the
I
stuff
see
my
what you're
best mate who
saying.
lives around the corner. Again, her lived experience. Also, guess what? A woman with long blonde hair. She has 4 teenage daughters. All of them now have at some point been sexually assaulted. They have been groped. They have been followed. They are scared living in London. What is going on? So I am going to keep talking about this. I don't care if people turn around and go, you're a racist, because my safety and the safety of women in this country is paramount. That is way more important.
Yeah, that's the shaming tactics. They want to hide the truth. They'll throw that at you.
Than offending certain communities who, quite frankly, have men with medieval values when it comes to women, and I ain't standing for it. So I'm going to keep on this subject. Now, one thing I think we need to do in this country is publish statistics on crime by nationality. We don't do it. Apparently, we don't keep them. We're too lily-livered. Oh, we keep statistics on the victims of crime by nationality, so we can turn around and go, oh, look, it's all poor people who are not from here being targeted. What about the fact that actually, if you look on, there's this brilliant website about organised crime around the world. The contributors to that are people like the CIA, Interpol, Europol, and they've got all the stats of who's committing crime where in what countries. It's an amazing.
Like I said, they know. It's like in New York City, they said, oh, the subways are safer than they ever have been before. But the people who ride it say, no. Like, so what you perceive or what you see is not real.
Deep dive. You can go onto this map and zoom in on a particular nation that explains all the sort of trends and patterns. About 90% of our organised crime was being committed by Albanians. I mean, for crying out loud, what are we importing? Now, countries that do actually publish their statistics, scandal.
Yeah, look at the new gangs we have here. You have new gang from Venezuela, gangs from Central America. You let them in because they want a cheap labor force, military-aged men. There's something wrong with that. Seriously.
Scandinavian countries. I've got some of them here. And so I want to sort of run you through a bit of this. Now, Denmark increased its level of non-Western born immigrants between 2020 and 2023 by a staggering 158%. 158%. Turns out at the same time, crime went up by 31%. Is there a correlation? Well, sex offences went up by 248%. And when you look at their league tables, the vast majority.
Damn.
Of those sexual offences are being committed by men who were not born in Sweden. They weren't even born in European countries or Western countries. That was Denmark, sorry. Now, Sweden.
You see what I mean? They said it wasn't true, but it is true.
In that same period, their level of non-Western immigration went up by 86%. Overall crime went up by 24%. Is there a correlation? Well, I don't know. Rape went up by 359%. Even the Prime Minister of Sweden has turned around and said, you know, perhaps we were a bit naive when it came to our immigration policy.
What? Motherfucker. I could have told you that shit. You don't migrate a bunch of people from an alien culture at that level. Like a few at a time, it's okay, because they will integrate. But you're talking like, let's say, 1 million, it's not going to work. And they see it now. But I could have told you that shit.
Policy. So there you go. These countries do publish league tables of who's committing crimes by nationality. And believe me, it makes for stark reading. We need to do that in this country, because if we're not honest with ourselves and the situation we're in, people like me are at risk. When I get the tube home to West London from East London, I am at risk. And I don't want to live in a country that doesn't value my safety enough to have this conversation. Now, a country that might find that this is soon going to be in train is Ireland, because they had 3.8 million as a population. And that's staggeringly gone up to 5.3 million in just a matter of years, because...
Damn. I haven't been to Ireland since 2012.
Yep, you guessed it, loads of inward migration, a 39% increase in non-Western migrants. The Irish, it seems to me, are already flexing their muscles, the Irish public, and getting pretty annoyed at some of the tent cities popping up. And believe you me, if there's going to be an insurrection on this issue anywhere, I reckon it'll be Ireland. So let's cross over now and speak to the president of the Irish Freedom Party, Herman Kelly, and get his thoughts on this. Herman, how are you doing?
Hello, Alex. Great to see you.
Yeah, you're great
And
to
you know
see
what?
you.
It is very brave of you to talk about this because we both know it's very on-PC to do so. But I believe it's more important to be factually correct than to be politically correct because the lives of people, and like I have 4
Yeah, I like what he said. Factually correct as opposed to politically correct. Forget the PC stuff, man.
daughters. And I can tell you for myself, a number of years ago, 2 miles from my home here in County Louth in Ireland, a convicted rapist, a guy called, Roman Croft. He was convicted of attempted rape of a 14-year-old girl in Derby a number of years ago. And when he came out of jail, I think he was in jail for a year and a half. Where did he come? He came to Dunleer in County Louth because his mother had been given a free social house in the middle of the town. A convicted rapist. And of course, when he arrived, there was a huge increase in burglaries in the area until he was caught. Until
Come on, man. That soft on crime stuff doesn't work. Now, I don't believe in warehousing people. If you're not going to educate them, train them for a better job, or if they can't be educated, then they just have to be warehoused. That's, to me, that's the last resort. At first, you should try to rehabilitate them. If they can't be rehabilitated, well, not that, but you just have to warehouse them.
a number of neighbours, and actually the local police did a very good job, caught the guy, he got 8 months in jail, and he got so much hassle out locally that he decided once he got out of jail, he was leaving Ireland completely. But there has been a huge increase in sex assault, in crime, over the last number of years. For example, in 2022, there were 12 women murdered in Ireland. 5 of those were murdered by non-national. Given that 22% of the population are non-national, that's a very high percentage. So I would say it's not just correlation. I would move towards that there's actually a causal link between a large number of unvetted males into a country and an increase in crime.
Now, we know for certain that there are foreign gangs.
Yeah, single dudes. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, military age man. You ain't giving them jobs. They don't have a family. Why would you want them there? I can see it was a family, man.
Gangs, and it's strange actually. The countries are committing crimes in various other countries via foreign gangs. They're sort of particular to particular countries. In the UK, it's largely been Albanian gangs. In other countries, it might be Turkish gangs, so on and so forth. Mexican gangs, if you're looking at America. But it's very clear that they're international. Things like the drugs trade is international, human trafficking is international, sex trafficking, so on and so forth. And there are various nations who are pulling strings and levers, and these are big international events. And that we certainly need to control borders and know who's coming in, so we don't want to import organised crime. The thing that it seems to me that we're still not talking about, and this is
We have there's a new gang from Venezuela operating in the U.S. now.
despite the exposure of grooming gangs in this country. Every time I read the newspaper now and I follow the news across Europe, there seems to have been a rape gang operating in Brussels or operating in Paris. The amount of young girls now who seem to be being raped by, it's actually called the lover boy technique, I think. Usually Somalian gangs, not always, North African gangs as well. The amount of young girls now falling victim to gang rape. Gang rape, that is one of the most horrific things that can happen to a little girl. And almost every single time, these gangs are coming from countries who, to put it in a mild manner, don't share our cultural values.
I think.
Well, it goes back to that post. I think there's something going on. They definitely want to decrease our standard of living. It's kind of obvious now.
People have to begin to be honest and call it what it is. Because if, as you say, if we look at the ethnicity and culture and religion, let's talk what it is. It's the Muslim, Islamic religion of these people. They're normally Algerian, Pakistani, Somalian, almost without exception. All across England and various other countries as well. And it's rape jihad is what is going on. It is the damage to young girls and the humiliation of men within their culture as well, to come in, to dominate and say, we're in charge now. That's what it's about.
Now, let's talk a bit. And I always have to do sort of disclaimer, little asterisks, and say, clearly not all Muslim men behave like this. But I think you're absolutely right in pointing out the common denominator with those countries that we are listing is that.
Well, it's the same thing going on here. There's something going on. Somebody has an agenda to change our lives. They shoot us all this BS about international trade, it grows the economy. That don't do nothing for us. That might make a handful of people rich, but for the masses, you getting the finger. That didn't sound good.
That's religion, or some of the cultural practices connected to that religion. I mean, let's not forget women in Iran aren't exactly having a lovely time when the Taliban happily lob rocks at women accused of adultery and so forth. I mean, it's not exactly brand new information to people to say a lot of Muslim countries treat women pretty appallingly. But let's look at what's going on in Ireland now, because, we think we've got a problem here in the UK when it comes to illegal immigration, the people coming over on boats. In Ireland, some of the scenes you're seeing in Dublin with these tent cities are absolutely out of control.
And that is what you're seeing in the 10 cities is only.
I wasn't aware of that. So they have the same problem with the homeless encampments. They are bringing our standard of living down. That's why I say if Jim Crow Joe gets in there, God help us. I'm still on the edge about Trump, because he did dodge that question during the debate. If he grants them amnesty, the Republican Party is done. It's a wrap. So both parties better step their game up. I don't know if Jim Crow Joe can win. I hope not.
The tip of the iceberg, because that's people living on the street. But the really serious problem is, one is a huge lack of housing, which has come about, and two is the increase in criminality, serious criminality. Now, between 2022 and 2023,
we just lost Herman then. I wanted to know what happened between 2022 and 2023. You still there, Herman? There he is.
Yes, happy days. In 1 year, there was almost a 50% increase in murder in Ireland.
What?
So there was a 50% increase in the murder rate. I think it went up from 25 to 47 in 1 year. When you have a very...
Damn. Double. Almost double.
Sharp increase in the number of unvetted males. You don't know these people coming in. You don't know their name. You don't know who they are. You don't know where they're from. You don't know if they have a criminal record. Now, would you believe that 85% of people who apply for asylum in Ireland at Dublin Airport, 85% claim that they've lost their passport between getting on the plane and getting off at Dublin Airport. So they're coming into the country lying to us. And so they've all...
It's game. The same thing here. It's game. And you have these bleeding heart liberals, humanitarians, who have no street sense whatsoever. Because no one with street sense would go for that. Oh, I lost my stuff. Oh, well, take your ass on back where you came from. Tough luck. It's not looking good, guys.
Already lied to us. And you know what? You have a large number of young males from any culture with nothing to do, hanging around all day, maybe drinking, etc. There's going to be trouble. And in Ireland, look, we've got to stop this practice of naivety or self-deception. We can see all across Europe. Sweden, you mentioned there.
Yeah.
Swedish TV did research there a number of years ago. They found out that 58% of all sex assault and rape was done by non-Swedish men who had arrived within the country within the last 5 years.
That's mad.
That's crazy. Again, yes, those crimes happen, but you don't want them to increase to higher levels when you bring more criminals into your country. This is stupid. Man, you're gonna have to resist all this liberal BS, man. If there was a war going on, yeah, I get it, asylum. They're abusing that. Asylum's not for economics. Asylum's not because a gang member moved in across the street. That's not what it's for. But we know why they're doing it. They want a cheap labor force and price us out. You know, bring us down. So when you lose your job, and I see a lot of millennials fussing about they can't find a good job. Keep voting for this stuff. Hold these fools accountable. Stop voting for baby boomers, man. They are too old. They need to go. They got theirs. We need to get ours. That's how you should be thinking.
58%. That is sort of knocking up to about 2/3 of rapes that have happened to men who've turned up in the last 5 years. That is sick.
Yeah.
These women should be suing the blimmin' government.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Swedish government did a report. It's not just a small report, like a government-wide report, found out that a non-Swedish national was 2.5 times more likely to commit rape or sexual assault than a Swedish man. So there's a huge causal link. And there's also a government report in Germany.
That's some serious stats, man. But that's what you get for being a bleeding heart liberal with no street sense. There's no one in hell I would have went for something like that. You come here, you have your own money, and you better have a skill that we can use.
From 2016, done by Lower Saxony University, found out there had been a 92% increase in serious crime in Lower Saxony in 1 year. So a 10% increase. 92% of it was carried out by newly arrived asylum seekers.
Let's not forget those scenes that happened in Cologne. I think it was 2016, New Year's Eve. The women had gone out in their little dresses to party and celebrate, and there were over 1,500 reported sex attacks, assaults and rapes in that square in Cologne on New Year's Eve alone. 1,500. And it was all men, largely from the Middle East and North Africa. And they've got this technique. They do it. There's footage online. You see a journalist, a young...
My God, man. But you lames voted for this stuff.
One female American journalist going to cover the Arab Spring uprisings in Egypt. And she's standing in the square reporting. And all of a sudden, what these men do is they see a woman and they surround her. And so they give each other protection. They surround her so no one else can get to her. They sort of, it's almost like when you see wolves picking off a lamb from the pack. And then they take it in turns to assault and rape her. This is something that they do in countries like that.
That's disgusting, man. I'm keeping it a buck. How do you get turned on by that? What turns me on is that she wants to give it to me. So that's what turns me on. She's turned on. Now I'm turned on. If she don't want to give me none, I don't get turned on.
Everybody, of course, but they do. And this is now what we risk importing. We've seen it happen in Cologne. We need to wake up. We need to get real. We need to protect and prioritize women. And also just look at crime in general. The same report you're talking about from Sweden says that when it comes to robbery, non-natives are 4 times more likely to be committing that crime. It's mad. Herman, thank you ever so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts on this issue. I mean, Peter, I just don't know where to begin with this.
No, it is staggering.
It's beyond an abrogation of duty that the government won't put the...
Yeah, I wonder what our stats are, because they're definitely hiding it from us. That would be interesting to see.
That's out in this country, because if they did, people would be tearing up paving slabs and lobbing them at police station windows.
I'm going to say, Herman, I think he's brilliant for pushing this stuff, and the numbers are staggering. But he said it was naivety. I don't think it's naivety. I think it's fear. The government won't do it, and the new government definitely won't do it, because they are terrified of being called Islamophobic, they are terrified of being called racist, and they are terrified of communities that they have pandered to for so long, and now they're going to have to say, well, wait a minute, this may not have been a good idea. I respect Prime Minister Sweden for saying, you know what, we may have got this one wrong.
Yeah.
Do you think the British establishment is going to say, well, they got this wrong? No, they're going to double down.
Yeah, it's like here. Both parties sold us out. Let's keep it a buck. From NAFTA on down. H. Ross Perot told you that once they sign that bill, you're going to hear a big boom, jobs leaving the country.
Like you've never seen. Once we talk about the women protection of girls, we also have to talk about the fact that there is an impact here on the gay community and LGBT
yes,
people.
Yes, absolutely.
The idea that some people, these people get to Calais, they get on a migrant boat, they come to the country, and they suddenly love the gays and the women. I'm sorry, in what world does that work? They've come from countries and cultures to which people like that are seen as lesser. They are seen as nothing, and that they don't just forget that. They bring it into this country, and it is dangerous.
Their own women are sort of shackled at home and walk out with burqas on and stuff, and then what they see on their mobile phones is pornography, and what they're being taught in some mosques mosques, not all, but
No.
some mosques are saying, oh, do you know what? White women, fair game.
Exactly. I mean, like, let's look at, since 2012, there's been a 462% increase in LGBT hate crime. And then look at the net migration figures. Again, do you think that's a coincidence? Here in London, just last year, there was 3,471 incidences. And London's supposed to be one a big gay-friendly loving city. It's absolute nonsense.
The man who bought the Trocadero in Soho is turning it into a mosque.
Yes.
Can't wait to hear the calls for prayer ringing out of the gay nightclubs empty.
I remember reading that story thinking, well, that's...
So, I don't think they have anything extra to give. It's the same thing here. They just come from different countries. Like I said, they have that new gang here. We have new gangs. MS-13. I forgot what the one from Venezuela is. You have Mexican cartels that run across the border. Albanian gangs. They're going to turn the U.S. into the hood. The whole United States is going to be the hood. That's what they're doing. They're doing it to Europe, too. So we need someone who's going to pump the brakes on this stuff and get them up out of here. They're worried about the birth rate. If you weren't paying women to have kids on their own, that would help. If you did homesteading instead of welfare, you know, helping young couples get on their feet. You know, people who are not going to live on the system for the rest of their lives. Try something like that. This can't end well. Keep your eye on your senators and congressmen. Everybody's always fussing about the presidency. You need to be looking at Congress and the Senate. They make the laws. They control the budget. That's who you need to be looking at. If they've been in office more than 2 terms, vote them out. If they're old, vote them out. Get them out of there. Because they don't care about you. They got theirs, but you can't get yours. You have to think about it. They were basically handed everything if you think about it. Homesteading, housing acts, the GI bills and all that stuff. They were given stuff to get on their feet. But now the young are coming up. Now you have to compete with millions of people from somewhere else who are willing to work for less money and taking your money from you to do it. Like I said, if these companies want to employ workers, they should be paying for it, not the taxpayer. But anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment below. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you brothers in the next video. Peace.